button. Yo, what's up, everybody? Got Alex Martin on here, dude. I'm freaking fired
What
up for
up?
this conversation. Like I said, no script. Let's shoot the shit, see where we end up, and
Like no script.
yeah, like I love it. So, as always, like I said, kick off with a wild, funny story. What do you have to get the ball rolling today?
Yeah, wild story. Definitely not related to athletics, but I've been in Miami here since 2015.
Okay.
And funny thing is I actually didn't start out working in athletics. I actually started my first career out of graduate school working in higher education. But again, I moved to Miami, right? Had never been here before, didn't have any family, no friends, like just moved out here in a whim because I was ready to start my career, eventually wanting to be in athletics. I'll get to like how I got from higher ed to athletics in a minute.
Yeah.
As far as the story goes, funny story. So keep in mind, I'm out here in Miami. I'm working for the University of Miami in their student affairs office. And what I didn't know when I first got there was that the TV show like Ballers on HBO,
Yeah.
they were shooting scenes at the University of Miami athletic facility. So of course, me being me, I'm being in Miami. I'm like, well, let me see if I can get in the TV show. So I end up finding the email, the casting director, and I send him just a cold email. And I'm like, hi, my name is Alex Martin. I'm here in Miami. I'm, shooting my shot to try to be in the TV show Ballers. And so it took about an hour. I got a response back, and they were like, hey, send us a photo of you. So I sent them it was like a photo from Instagram back when like it was like the OG Instagram, like
Yeah.
just photos. So I shot that out there, seeing what they say, and got hit back literally 20 minutes later. It was like, where are you located? I'm like, well, I'm here in Miami. They're like, well, how tall are you? I'm like, 6'2", 200. They were like, can you be here for an overnight shoot? I'm like, wait a minute, like, is this happening? Like, this,
Yeah.
this is legit about to happen. So I'm like, yes, I can. They're like, all right, well, send me a headshot. So again, like at the time, like my only headshot was the one that I had from the University of Miami. And this was actually my first week on the job at UM. So I'm sitting here, I'm like, I could potentially have a career in TV on the TV show
Yeah.
or continue working in higher ed and student development. So I'm like, it's funny. I even went to my boss, Mike Baumhart, at the time. I was like, hey, I'm just showing you this so you know, like I could legit be on the set of Ballers right now. Long story short, it didn't happen. I actually didn't send them back my availability because they would have needed me for an overnight shoot for the next 2 months, which would
Damn.
require some daytime also. So I told Mike, my supervisor at the time, like I just want you to know, like I'm giving up my TV
Yeah.
job right now. So every time someone asks me what's like crazy that's happening with something that you've seen in Miami, like I could have been on Ballers. Like I could have been Denzel Washington
Damn.
stand-in. I could have been Keith David Washington stand-in. I didn't know what my role was going to be, but I was ready for whatever it was going to be.
Damn, that's what well, and like that's fast too. Like to get a
Yes.
response like in like an hour and then a follow up in like 20 minutes. It's
Keep
like,
in mind, like coldest email I ever sent. I'm looking online. I'm like Miami Ballers casting University of Miami. And whoever it was on the other end, they hit me back in an hour. All the questions: what's your height, weight? Send me a headshot. Send me a full size. Can you be here for an overnight shoot? I'm like, this is gonna happen for real. This is gonna it's actually
yeah.
about to happen.
So to all the people out there, fucking shoot your shot. Come on, you never
look,
know.
shoot, look, shoot the shot, answer the phone, answer the email, do all of it.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Well, yeah, I guess that's a perfect place to start. I guess like I said before we even hit record, it's like I genuinely want to know like kind of the backstory of like how like how you wound up in Miami, how you kind of got into like player development, now like player engagement. Like I don't even know like are those the same? Like
Mhm.
what are the ins and outs difference? Obviously there's probably I'm assuming a difference with dealing with grown men versus 18 and 19-year olds.
Yeah,
But
they're
yeah,
all the same.
yeah, that's probably true too.
Just a little older, that's all.
Still act 18, 19. It is what it is, right? Like, don't we all? Like, I'm in the same boat too. But yeah, I guess like from like where were you? Like, how'd you wind up in Miami? What I guess like did you always want to get into athletics? Was that kind of like the big picture? Yeah, plug in the gaps for me.
Yeah, so from the Midwest originally, Illinois, went to Southern Illinois University. So that's where I
Okay.
played football at. I was a wide receiver. But it's funny, so my bachelor's is actually in computer science.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
at the heart, I'm low key a computer nerd. Like I
I was about to
consider
say
code
coding
actually.
nerd.
Exactly. So I just, that's my thing. I grew up just, liking computers and wanting to code. And then I from bachelor's in computer science, my master's was actually in education administration and higher ed. So I didn't do like the whole sports management or sports business
Yeah.
thing. But while I was playing, I was like, well, I knew if SIU was going to bring me on to play football and I had to go to class to continue playing football, I might as well major in something that I'm going to like and enjoy. Like I wasn't going to
Right.
pick a major that I was going to dread going to class to. Like I actually wanted to enjoy going to class and learning more about computers and coding and whatnot, right? Um, but I knew coming up on my last game, my last home game senior year, which was actually like our homecoming game, like I knew I wasn't going to go pro. And so I'm sitting here, I'm like, all right, I got, 1 semester to figure this out. I got 1 semester to figure out what life is going to be like after Christmas break. And I was blessed to have a mentor in Dr. Williams who kind of set, I've known him since my sophomore year. He had been kind of coaching me off the field because we didn't have a student athlete development office at
Yeah.
SIU. Like I had my coach telling me when and where I needed to be at practice and my academic advisor telling me when and where I had to be at class. But that was it. Everything else I was just kind of like going off the cuff. And I had Dr. Williams to kind of help me set a path into, all right, it's junior year, here's what you need to focus on. It's senior year, here's what you need to focus on. Here's second semester, senior year. Like, what is going to be your plan come day one of second semester? Because you won't have practice, you won't have competition. Like, you're not going to have the team anymore, right? And so he's the one who actually told me about graduate school, which I didn't know existed until I was done playing. I'm like, you want me to go to school for another 2 years? I'm like, what? Like, come on, bro. I just got out, But one thing I learned from Dr. Williams was, when I look back at my 4 years at SIU and all that he did for me, I'm like, look, I know I want to play football, but right now my passion is, Dr. D, I saw what you did for me. I want to be able to take what you did for me and be able to do that for everyone else. Like
Yeah.
that's what I want to do. And I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
know what kind of major that is. I don't know what kind of minor that is, but where can I get in to get the skill sets you have and how you help me get from point A to point B? And how can I take that, emulate it, internalize it, and flip it to where I can do it for others? And so that's how I got into higher education. I started diving into like campus activities, right? So at SIU, like I spent my 2 years in graduate school planning all the concerts, the comedy shows, the large scale events. I have way too many t-shirts from all that. I just remember like at the core of it, I'm like, I'm helping students with their personal development, their leadership development, and their career development,
Yeah.
right? So that was graduate school. And that's what ultimately brought me to Miami. I grew up a U fan, huge University of Miami football fan, huge, huge. And so I'm like, all right, well, when I graduate here, like going to Miami, let's take a shot to see if they're hiring anywhere. So I shot my shot, and I actually got called by the University of Miami, and I got brought on as their assistant director for campus activities. So again, I was planning all the large scale comedy shows, concerts, family weekend, all the pep rallies, doing all the 8 p.m. to midnight, like all of that. Was
Yeah.
my passion there? No, but that's what my skill set was at the time.
Yeah.
And I like what I was doing, but at the same time, it's like I like what I'm doing, but my passion is athletics. I need to be able to take what I have now and flip it towards the athletic perspective. Now, keep in mind, I didn't know student athlete development was a thing at this point because I never had it at SIU.
Yeah.
One day, I got tapped on the shoulder by Sherelle Jackson at UM, and she was like, "Hey, she's like, I see what you're doing with the general student population here on campus. Like, what are your thoughts on doing that with our student athletes?" I'm like, now wait a minute. You might have something here because I had a mentor who was doing this for me when I was playing, and you might be that person here that I can help do that with. And so her and I, we sat down over coffee one day, and I was just kind of telling her, kind of like you and I are talking now, just of my story and and how I got to where I am now. And she was like, "Oh, you'd be great to talk to our student athletes." And so ended up jumping from campus activities to student athlete development, which was actually perfect because all I had to do was take what I was doing for the general student population and take it and tailor it towards student athlete, which is
Yeah.
my direct perspective. But now I can give these student athletes resources and services that I didn't have at SIU. So now I'm able to take my experience as a student athlete in the transition from student athlete to general student to grad student to now professional in whatever career field. I get to take that, package it, put it in resources with the University of Miami's name on it, and now give that to the student athletes at UM to where now wherever they go pro in, whether that's sports, business, academics, whatever, they now have the tools and resources that I didn't have. And it's funny. So one day I started at UM in 2015, and then I jumped to UM athletics in 2018. And again, like the work got easier for me because instead of programming for like the 11, 12,000 students that go to UM,
Right.
I had to, shrink it down to now it's only 400 student athletes across 18 teams. So the work
Mm-hmm.
actually got easier for me because I could be a little more specific and intentional with it. But I got a call from the Dolphins one day, and it's funny because I got this call on a Tuesday at noon. I'll never forget it. I was just coming back from an on-campus interview from another institution. when the Dolphins called me the next morning and they were like, "Yeah, so we heard about what you're doing with the NCAA, the ACC, and the University of Miami student athletes. Would you have any interest in doing that here with the Dolphins?" I said, "Absolutely, of course I would."
Yeah.
A no-brainer. They were like, "Well, could you interview today at 12?" At the time, or no, they were like, "Can you interview today at 2 o'clock?" And it was 12 o'clock at the time. So I'm like, of course I can. I'll be ready. So I canceled 3 meetings that day to make sure I was on there for an interview. The interview lasted for like maybe 2 hours, and that was a Tuesday. They ended up calling me back saying, "Hey, can you come to the facility to do an in-person interview on Thursday?" Literally 2 days later. I'm like, "Yes, absolutely, I'll be there." And it was like a full day interview. Like I was there at 6 a.m., interviewed with the GM first, the VP second, the head coach third. It was very top heavy, like very top
Yeah,
heavy.
yeah, yeah.
Met with all the department heads, met with a few players. I actually went out to practice. So that was part of my interview, was seeing how I interacted with the players during practice, the players and coaches, and then finished off the day after team meeting, probably like 5 or 6. It was a very long day. But they ended up calling me the following Tuesday. It was like, "Hey, want you to know we're looking to make an offer sometime this week." I'm like, "Okay, you got my number." And they ended up calling me the following Thursday with the offer, and signed my contract Friday. So it all happened in like 8 days.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a real condensed version of how I got here. But I say it that way because it kind of goes to show how quickly this
Well,
stuff
yep.
happens, and really just how quickly, or how ready you have to be for any and every opportunity that presents itself.
Yeah, what was there like as they being the Dolphins picked up the phone and called you?
Hmm.
I guess like what was their vision that they like implanted to you of like hey, this is the way we see you coming in and doing like whatever it
Hmm.
was. And I guess like part B of that, had they been doing any of that before they even picked up the phone and called you, or was it kind of, I mean, it's similar to like how I reached out to you. It's just like the whole like player development and kind of, I use the word like mentor, right? Like mentoring
Hmm.
these athletes, how you had somebody like in college
Yeah.
is really starting to like catch fire now. I think it's
Hmm.
like gaining traction because they're realizing that these kids literally like needs,
Basically.
yeah, like needs, are craving some kind of direction, right? Like they
Hmm.
want somebody to just be like, hey, I'm not telling you what to do, but here's a couple decisions. Like here's A, B, and C. Now you decide and you take it and you run with it from there. Um,
Yeah.
so I guess backing up is like paint like what was the Dolphins' vision for you like as they picked up and phone and called you, and had they had like anybody else prior to you even coming in?
Yeah, so originally, and I had asked the same question, like, how did you find me? Is I
Right.
always been down the street,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
UM
yeah.
in the Dolphins facility, it's not far, but they told me it wasn't the work that I was doing at UM that put me on the radar, is everything else that I was doing. So working with student athletes from across all the ACC schools, doing all the facilitating and presenting for the NCAA, that's what got me on their radar. And at the time, they did have somebody else in this role already. It was Josh Mariner, who's now the director of player engagement for the Cardinals. So it was Caleb Thornhill, who was the director of player engagement, Josh Mariner, who was the coordinator at the time, and then Tyler Thompson, who's now the coordinator for player engagement with the Buccaneers. So Caleb, Josh, and Tyler were already working in this space, and then so when I got here, Josh had just got promoted to director for the Cardinals that year, so I was brought
Mm,
in as coordinator. So it was Caleb, me, and Tyler, and then the following year, Tyler was our intern, and he ended up getting picked up by the Buccaneers, which was great because now he's in his full-time role,
mm-hmm.
voted to director, and now Caleb is doing his thing with the Spurs. And so again, like I say it because it wasn't the work that I was doing in my current space; it was everything
Yeah.
else that I was doing on top of the work that I was already doing with the Hurricanes. And to kind of go to the second part of the question, we talk about player development, player engagement in the space that we're in. Like it all sounds the same, and for the most part, somewhat it is. It's just there's subtle differences. Like I think now there's even more colleges that are taking student athlete development out the name and just putting player engagement. Like I know there's a
Yeah.
few D1 schools that have player engagement within their athletic department as opposed to student athlete development. To me, it doesn't really matter what you call as long as the work is being done,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
um, for me, the biggest difference between the college space and the professional space, one, personally, it's a time commitment. Again, like during season, there's a game every Sunday. Monday is going to be a film review day, sometimes a game day. Tuesday, it's an off day for the players, but coaches and staff are still in the building. Wednesday and Thursday are heavy practice days. Friday is, what we call Fast Friday, where there's still practice and meetings happening, but we try to be out the building by 2 o'clock sharp. And then Saturday is travel day. And then, of course, game day Sunday, and you start the week all over again.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the core work that we do, the same career leadership and personal development that I was doing with our college athletes at UM. I'm still doing the same work here with the Dolphins players. However, it's a little different because, again, instead of 400 student athletes across 18 teams, now I have at most 90 players on one team. So again, my skill set hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And essentially, I'm still doing campus activities.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm still doing that, but I'm able to. I've learned and mastered to where I can take my essential skill set and apply it to literally anywhere that I'm at. Of course, it started with general students at UM, then it went to student athletes, now it's professional athletes. The work hasn't changed. It's just now I can
Yep.
tailor it towards the group that I'm talking with. But now there's a little more at stake because these players are coming with families, right? Like when we
Yeah.
think of player development, I think people often forget that like you're never developing just the player, right? Like when a player comes to Miami, like they're bringing their family. Like
Yeah.
most of the times they are bringing their family, which means a partner or kids, Uncle Ray, Auntie. Like sometimes they're bringing the entire family out here, and I don't think people realize just how difficult a transition that can be. Right? You can wake up, you can lay your head down in Green Bay, Wisconsin Monday night, but then wake up in Miami, Florida Wednesday morning on a brand new team. And people don't understand that two very different cities, two very different cultures, two very different vibes. This family is coming here not knowing where the nearest school is, where the nearest grocery store is, where the nearest
Mm.
home Depot is. Are they looking for public school? Are they looking for private school? Are they looking for Montessori school? Are they looking for nannies? Are they looking for babysitters? Like are they, how old are the kids? Are they in junior high, high school? Are they looking for a college? Things like that. All that goes into player development because the less the player has to worry about outside the building, the more they can focus here in the building.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I always say, and I think of it too, is like the word I had I was sitting down to like, I guess it was kind of interviewing like for a team that like I now work with, and they were like, if you could sum everything up into one word, what would it be? And I was like, oh shit. And I was like, but honestly, it's pretty simple. Is like identity, right? Because I
Mm-hmm.
truly, genuinely believe is like if a person can genuinely know who they are, like then that like the performance comes, right? But like
Yeah,
most
yeah,
people they struggle with the performance because of all the like external shit that's going on
exactly.
like in their life. And so it's like I always like phrase it as like you don't get what you want, you get who you are. And so it's like
Mm-hmm.
you can say all these things, you can have all these big dreams and goals and ambitions and whatever, but it's like if you're lost as a person, it's like you might have some short-term success, but like longevity,
Long
it's gonna be fucking
term,
hard. It's gonna be
it's not
hard.
as it's going to be very difficult to press forward. And again, like as far as what we do here with the Dolphins, I think we have a great top tier run organization as far as how we go about helping our players holistically, like everything from large scale to small scale. Like we have a barber shop in our players lounge where players can get their haircuts here every Friday. That's way, they can get their haircut here in the facility, so they don't have to worry about it when they go out. They can get their car washed here at the facility. So while they're at
That's
practice,
dope.
their car
Yeah.
is getting washed. Again, the less they have to worry about when they leave this building, the more they can focus when they're in the building, right? And that's small scale stuff. But even when we're talking about large scale things like, all right, personal accountability, finances, and really just stress and managing healthy versus unhealthy relationships. Like we take care of all that here in house so they know how to manage outside of here. One thing that Caleb had said all the time is like if the man is not right, the player will never be right because you're a
Yeah.
man first before you're a professional athlete, or you're a woman first before you're a professional athlete. And if things aren't taken care of at home, and home being like your center, yourself, your
Yeah.
soul, your
Yep.
spirit, your purpose, everything else gets thrown out of whack. So you got to be able to take care of yourself first. And I tell my rookies all the time, like, listen, whether y'all want to be here or not, I'm gonna see y'all every single day, and I'm gonna drop gems, and whether you choose to catch them is completely up to you.
Yep.
But I guarantee you, at some point during the season, you're going to be right back in my office asking me the very same question about a jewel I tried to give you 2 months ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always
Yeah.
comes
Yeah.
full circle.
I'm curious too, is what's the word? I'll ask the question, then I'll like back up and tie it together. Is like, what's the biggest like hurdle or word or like piece of emotional awareness that like you help them solve? And why I ask that is I'm curious of like all the college teams that like I've worked with. I'm like, what's the number one emotion that you feel every single day? And like without question, it's either stress, anxiety, or overwhelmed, right? And I'm like, okay, if you feel that the majority of your day, the question becomes, are you addicted to a life that you don't love? And like, oh
Mm,
shit, that's kind of deep, man. I'm like, yeah. So it's like if you wake up and 80% of your day is stress and you do it over and over and over again, and now you've
mm-hmm.
gone 18 years and
You're building
80% of
a
that
life of
18.
stress.
So I was like, okay, I'm not here to cut stress out of your life. I'm not a fool to think that like I'm like that A, that that's actually possible, and B, like, another rabbit hole is you actually want some stress to kind of like get your ass in gear at times. but it's like,
Hmm.
how do we manage that and how do we control it? And I call it like tipping the scales. What's something that you do want to feel? Excitement, joy, appreciation, gratitude, like whatever it is. It's like all we need to do is get the scale to 51%. Because if you stack 51% long enough, it's like now the scale is tipped. So I'm curious, like within, especially more in like the professional world, is like as you ask them, what's that emotional piece that like you really try to like help throw gems at for them and like help them solve?
Yeah. So for me, I I do my best to try to come in one excited every day, but also two like just kind of on the edge because no 2 days are the same.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like when you're looking at in season versus off season, right? In season, you win the game on Monday or you win the game on Sunday, Sunday night. Monday's going to be great. Everyone's happy, like everyone's jumping around. But you lose the game on Sunday or you lose in like a bad fashion, completely sets the trajectory for the entire week. I think NFL is one of those cases where we play one game a week, sometimes two. But if you play like Sunday and you win, you get to sit with that win for the next 6 days.
Yeah.
If you lose, you got to sit with that L for the next 6 days. Where baseball, you're playing like 3 or 4 games a week. Basketball, you're playing 3 or 4 games a week. You lose one, you play another one in 2 days.
Yep.
It's not like that in football. So, like, my job, essentially, a lot of it is dictated around, you know, the health and well being of our players post game, win or lose. And when I'm talking to my rookies, I see oftentimes a lot of them they struggle with that identity piece because now a lot of them, I'd say come September, where they get that first game check and they realize that game check is 3 times the amount that their parents made in a year that they get in one check. They're not used to having that kind of money, so their identity kind of shifts to where I'm a baller now. I got funds, I got money, But then even backing up to like training camp where the rookies and the undrafted guys like they realize like they're on our roster, but it's a 90-man roster. It's not the active or the practice squad roster,
Right,
right?
right.
They
Yep.
haven't essentially made the team yet. A rookie will be here from May all the way through probably the end of August. And it'll just be a temporary space because it's a 90-man roster. So some guys coming in like, yeah, I'm on the team, I'm good, I'm good. Others are like, no, I haven't made the team yet. Like I'm on the roster, like I'm on a 90-man roster, but cut day is coming. So
Yeah.
some guys' identity is no, I'm determined to make this team, while you have other guys that are just happy to be here, right? And so my job going into I speak a lot about our rookies because I love the group so much because I love seeing the growth from rookie mini camp all the way to game one where they're either active or practice squad, whatever. I love seeing the growth in their trajectory. But again, like their identities are so varied around again between May and August, which is crucial because during rookie minicamp, it's just the rookies practicing. That's it. Rookies and undrafted guys, it's just them practicing. But the following Monday, they get introduced to the veterans. So now all the time that they got with the coaches one-on-one for the past 3 or 4 days doesn't exist no more. Now they're thrown into a
Yeah.
position with the veterans. So now they're the ones going to getting water. They're the ones going getting food. They have to sit in the back while the vets sit in the front. So when they were, the number one draft pick thought he was top dog, coming into May after the draft, he realized he's in a position room with other first round draft picks, but he's still a rookie but he doesn't see it that way.
Yeah.
And then we get to, midway through the season where some things are happening now. A rookie who was on practice squad gets elevated for the first time. So he went from, man, like, I'm only on practice squad to shoot. Like, let me get my stuff together because I'm actually starting this week. So the identity varies throughout the entire season. And then you get to off season, it's like, all right, well, you were only on a 1 year contract. What's going to happen next? So you
Yeah.
don't know what's going to happen. So identities vary all throughout the season, both in season, out of season. And for me, I try to do my best to make sure I keep a level head through it all because as excited as I get for one player, I got to make sure the other players are just as good. Like, hey, keep up the good work. Hey, just keep grinding every single day. At some point, coach is going to call you up. Just make sure you're ready when the time comes. So I try to keep this level balanced to where I'm excited for everybody, but at the same time, I'm making sure the ones who haven't hit that peak yet are still, striving and urging and pushing themselves to get to that next level.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's very interesting. And I guess too is from a leadership like development standpoint, I'm curious of like how your approach is more inside the professional world because like in the college world it's like you can go in and you can tell like if you're a freshman you can say it's like if you're a highly respected, you're coming in, you're impacting,
Mm-hmm.
like it's like dude, like speak up, come on man, like you don't have to
Yeah.
wait till like you're a junior to like the
Mm-hmm.
hierarchy, it's false, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach that from, because I'm sure it's a little bit different, and if you have a 21, 22-year old coming in and then there's guys that are 30 plus, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
how do you manage that and like really coach and encourage the youngers? Because if they're on that roster and if they're a playmaker and if they're in the game, it's like they have to understand some level of like leadership. And so it's like I'm
Mhm.
curious of like how you approach that with them.
Yeah, and here's something you don't hear about often, or you may not hear of often. Here's my gripe with the term leadership when it comes to sports, right? And it's my only gripe, whether it's college or professional. When you turn on the TV, turn on ESPN, you turn on NFL Network. I'll use football for example. You turn on ESPN, NFL Network. A lot of the outside noise around the term leadership is based off athletic ability, right? If
Yes.
someone's been a 4-year starter in college, they're deemed as a leader because they have
Yes.
stats. Forget the personal, like how they are as a person, forget how they are in the locker room, like forget their interpersonal communication skills. They are deemed a leader because of their athletic ability. Same with the NFL. You can turn on the NFL ticker, you can turn on the NFL network, you see the ticker at the bottom, like because of this person's stat, they've been a 4-year starter, they've been, a starting wide receiver since their rookie year. Like, yeah, he's a great leader in the locker room. How do you know?
Yeah.
Like just because this person's been he's leading the league in sacks or leading the league in receiving yards, leading the league in interceptions, whatever. Like we can't equate leadership by itself to just athletic ability, and that's my only gripe with the term leadership when it comes to sports. Is we deem people more so of leader based on what they're able to do for us in their sport as opposed to who they are as a person. Now, I'm not saying if you don't have great stats you can't be leader, or if you have great stats you can't be leader. I'm not saying that, but I just think the conversation needs to be tiered more so towards, one, interpersonal communication skills, emotional intelligence, how different players interact with their locker room, right? Like, you look at the NFL now. Yes, there is somewhat of a hierarchy in the league to where, hey, rookie, go get my helmet, go get my shoulder pads, carry my shoulder pads every day this week. You got to pay your dues. That happens. And then even look at team captains from the standpoint in the NFL league perspective. Just kind of speaking on the Dolphins, it may be different in other teams, but I know here at the Dolphins, I think our locker room does a great job of effectively choosing who's our team captains based on who our players genuinely follow
Yep.
because of who they are as a person.
Yep.
It's not always a starter. It's not always the highest paid person on the team. It's the person in the locker room who's able to reach everybody, right? And that's what I love about our locker room is again when they take being team captain seriously because it's like, yo, who am I going to follow in a Monday night football game? I'm gonna follow this guy. I don't
Yep.
care if it's second string. Like our locker room is really good at choosing the guys who they know they're going to fight for them, just like they would fight for them back. Now, again, granted, sometimes it is going to be the highest player. Sometimes it is the most
For
popular
sure.
team. That happens all the time. But again, my just biggest gripe with the leadership thing is that's not always equated to their athletic stats or their athletic ability. The conversation needs to be pushed past that into who they are as a person, and their the reflection of who they are within the locker room as well.
Yeah. And I like, I feel like another like key element of leadership buzzword, right? Oh man, that's been my thing this year is like I'm sick of all the buzzwords. Like every place I've gone into so far this year, I was like, we're going to define what these words mean. Like because everybody or I'm always like, if you could have one thing, what would it be? And everybody's like confidence. I'm like, what's your definition of confidence? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, well, how do you get something you don't even know what it is, right? Like
Just like
let's
the word.
yeah, right. Like we've heard it for 20 years. Um, and I'm sure within some kind of leadership too is I saw this, it was at the high school level, but I think it's a powerful example of I think honesty plays a key role like into
Yeah.
leadership of like
Mhm.
very clear on like why they're there and they're willing to say it. And the example I give is I was working with a high school wrestling team and as essentially like what's your guys' dream outcome individually? Your dream outcome this season. You got like state champ. You got want to be a starter. Like I want to get a Division 1 scholarship. Like I want to wrestle in
Mhm.
college. Blah blah blah. So I had this freshman in the back, and he raises his hand and he goes, "Coach, I'm just gonna be honest." He's like, I'm here to make friends." He's like, "I've never wrestled a day in my life," and he's like, "I joined a team to like make
Valid.
friends." Fast forward a couple years later, and it, he got in and out of the lineup, like he became a starter just in and out of the lineup. And so it's like he was a little bit of a starter, but had probably a top three respected voice on the team just because he
Mhm.
worked his ass off and he was really clear about why he was there. And so
Mhm.
people, I think
Love that.
people like will flock to that. Probably, I would assume even at the professional level of like
Authenticity.
straight up, like here's what it is, right? Like versus like, dude, you don't say one thing and live a different way, right?
Right.
Like that,
Right.
like we're definitely not going to follow you from that realm.
Yeah, like authenticity is so key, and just authenticity and just being genuine, And I tell my rookies all the time, like your time will come.
Yeah.
Like it'll come. You'll know when it's there. And the term leader in sports is huge because either everyone wants to be that guy or no one wants to be that guy. Like everyone
Yeah.
wants to be that guy because they want to be the person, or everyone wants to be that woman because they want to be the person that brings everybody together, right? But then also on the flip side, it was like, no, I don't want to be a leader. Like I don't want all accountability on me. Which too, I mean, is valid also. Some people want the smoke, some people don't.
Yeah.
Um, but I tell my rookies like your time will, when it comes to leadership, your time will come. Just be ready when it is. There's going to be a moment. There's going to be a defining moment in your career over the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 years to where you're going to have to step up in a role that you've never stepped in before.
Yep.
The question is, are you going to be ready for it? And what can you do now to be prepared to be ready for it? Right. So I'm talking like, you may be an undrafted free agent now, but are you staying after to get extra reps? Are you mentally going through the game reps? Are you taking the time out to go through film, knowing what every single scheme is, what design is? You may be the X receiver, but what's the Y and Z receiver doing also, right? Like, do you know everyone's role? So when your time comes and coach calls you on a game and it's 3rd and 17, and he's calling you in the receiver, but it's Z and not X. Do you know Z's role or do you just
Yeah.
know X's role? Like,
Yeah.
and coach confidently puts you in and know, you know what? I'm not worried about him. He's got it, right? But I tell them, not just rookies, but the players, like your time will come. It's just you have to do the things now to prepare yourself for it. Whatever that looks like or whatever that means, it's going to be up to your situation. That could mean like again, staying after practice, getting extra reps, getting extra time in with the assistant coaches, literally plotting out the playbook, looking at film, studying your own cutups, studying the cutups of the DB from whoever you're playing. Again, I'm a wide receiver, so I use a lot of wide receiver DB
Yeah.
analytics. But I say like prepare now so that when the time comes, you're absolutely ready for it.
Yeah. It's like it's the analogy, like you have to be the person first, right? It's like all,
You
especially like younger kids, right? They're like, at one time I owned a strength and conditioning facility, and like some people, hey, I want to go play ball at Bama, or I want to go play basketball at Duke, or like I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
like I'll see you 5 days a week at 6 a.m. They're like, well, that's a little early now. I'm like, well, what the hell you think you gonna do? Like you like, oh well, when I get there, like I'll work out at 6 a.m. I'm like, bro, it doesn't work like that. Like you have to, if you want to attract, pull those things like into your life, like you got to be that person now. Or I think the example I always give, I don't remember where I heard this, but it was like, if you take all the money in the world and you distribute it out evenly, like within a year, it'll be right back in the hands of the same
That's
people, right? Because they know like how to get
Mhm.
that. They are that person versus the poor person or the poorly minded person is they're always going to be in poverty, i.e., not get the goals, the dreams, the things that they want.
Yeah,
Um,
preparation and leadership, I think, go hand in hand. Like it's hard to have one without the other. You know what I'm saying? And I just when I look back at my time in the college space, and we always frame leadership around how you step up when no one else is, right? Like if you have a locker room if you have a locker room that's divided, how do you bring everybody together? And that's very prominent in the college space as it should be because it's teaching base fundamentals of leadership in a space that allows for growth and development in that, in that sense. But when you get to the league, it's more so like, hey bro, you only been in the league 2 years. Hey, hold your peace for right now. We got this. We as veterans, we got this. And yes, that exists. But my conversation with the guy who wants to step up is, you know what? Don't take this personally. Again, that's locker room culture. Just be ready when your time comes. Be
yeah,
ready when your time comes. Because here, what I hate seeing is like, for example, like let's use an in-game example for example. As a wide receiver, you either know the route or you don't. Like there is
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah,
there
yeah,
is no in between. So let's say coach calls you in, right? And you go in as the X wide receiver and you get the play and you line up on the line, you check with the referee, and you're like, shoot, I don't know what my route is right now. You're gonna run something and you either hope it's right. And if it's not, the entire coaching staff and the entire locker room is gonna know the next day because you're going to see it on film and they're going to be like, yeah, you ran the complete wrong route. You went the opposite way. You ran a post and you were supposed to run a dig, things like that. But again, it goes down to preparation. Like the
yeah,
biggest thing for me, what I tell players all the time is coaches just know, they just want to make sure, and they just want to know that they can count on you, that they can have confidence that if at any moment they need you, They can put you in there. And if the locker room is seeing you taking the time to put in extra reps, watch extra cut-ups of film, do go the extra mile to be ready for when you are called, they'll see that and they'll remember that to where when your time is called, it's not going to be no secret to anybody that you were ready when your number was called because they've seen the preparation going to work. To me, that shows leadership because when you're still
Yeah.
doing work and no one's watching.
Yeah. I think of everything you just said is like, I think the other one of the words like I like really, 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 really try to help like student athletes with is like the ability to make decisions, right? The ability to choose of like this is going to be a part of like who I am. This is going to be part of my routine. 10 extra reps afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Film study with X coach or X person, like whatever it is. Because I feel like so many people, everybody laughs, but like I'll be in a room of people. I'm like, y'all know damn well, like if y'all leave here right now and like all of a sudden it's like, what do y'all want to eat for tonight? It's gonna take 45 minutes for y'all to dance. Like you
No one
can't even
knows.
decide what you're gonna Chick-fil-A
No
or
one
Zaxby's. You
knows.
don't even know yet, right? Like, and so I was like, that's a superpower is if you can like make decisions, the quicker you can make decisions,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, think about it. In football example, it's like, especially from like a quarterback standpoint, is like one of the things they rant and raves on is like how quickly can they make decisions, right? Like that
Mm-hmm.
becomes one of their superpowers. I
Yeah.
think that's across the board just for people in general, is most people always say it's like we live in a world where most people want to fit in rather than stand out. And so it's
Yeah.
like it's the decision to like, hey, I'm gonna go like X route because like what was it somebody told me the other day? It's like the fastest path to the life that you don't want is just to doing what everyone else is doing, right? And so, but
Mm-hmm.
it's the decision of
In
like,
a way, very quickly.
yeah, wild, wild. I guess, or go ahead.
I would say too, even with decision making, just at the league level, one thing we tell our rookies very early in our rookie success programs is one how important decision making is because in college you can kind of get by off talent.
Yeah,
Like talent can get you very far in college, but when you get to the league level, talent will only get you so far. Like the ability to make decisions and intelligent decisions will dictate how long you last in the league. Why we have guys here in the league, even on the Dolphins, who are in their ninth, 10th, 11th season, just based off their ability to make decisions. This guy
yeah,
knows that he used to be an elite player, star, star defensive lineman, star wide receiver, star safety back when it was like his fourth, fifth, sixth year. But now that he's in like year 10, he's not as athletic, but he still trains the way now that he trained back when he was his rookie year. So he's made the decision. All right, I may not be that level of athlete anymore, but I can still play in this league. So I'm gonna still train as if I'm a rookie, even though I'm in like my year 10. But even going back to the rookies, it's like, yes, you can get by off talent alone at the college level, but to develop a routine in the league is crucial, right? Like I say this word routine, routine, routine. They're like, well, what do you mean by, like you said, what do you mean by routine?
yeah,
What you do day in and day out to continually get better each and every single day. It's harder to get 30% better in one day, and it's much easier to get 1% better every day for 30 days. So
yeah.
what are you doing today? What are you doing? What are you going to do tomorrow? Well, what are you going to do today that'll make you 1% better tomorrow? And how can you sustain that over the course of the next 3 months? During from rookie mini camp all the way to the end of preseason. Like, what routine? What time are you going to wake up? What are you going to eat for breakfast? What are you going to do in the morning regarding rehab? When you go to film study and practice or position meetings, how do you take your notes? Do you take your notes? Do you write them down? Do you record them? Is everything in the playbook? Like even when you go out to practice, how do you pre-prepare for practice? What do you do after practice? And when watching post-practice film review, how are you looking at your own cutups? Are you looking at only just your film? Or are you looking at the film of like your position mates, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go home. What do you eat when you go home? What time do you go to sleep? How do you wake up? Like all of that routine. This is 18 weeks is a very long time.
Yeah.
Think about it. You're going to be in this building from September 1 all the way to January, potentially February post Super Bowl. That is a very long time to be doing the same thing every single day, and it wears and tears on your body. And the decisions you make Sunday night after the game will have huge effects on how you feel Tuesday and Wednesday, first thing at practice. So again, decision making and routine, those are two things that are preached heavily and often in the league, just because both play a major role in not only the success in this league but the longevity also.
Yeah. And it's the boring decisions too, right? Like,
it,
what are you gonna eat? It's like it's not that important. But like, yeah, it is. If you
it
take it into
is.
account over 18 weeks, plus you're gonna be here for 3 years or whatever, it's like now you've missed on hundreds and thousands of decisions that you've just like
Mhm.
I call it being a drifter, right? Like you can be a decision maker, you can be a drifter or
Yeah.
a dabbler, right? Like you can dabble in this career, or like
Hmm.
you can really sit down and like take it seriously and make all the boring decisions, because
Hmm.
those are the ones that nobody else is doing, and that is actually how you surpass everybody, right? The boring work, right?
For
Like,
sure.
I mean, think about it. Is You can correct me if I'm wrong, because wrestling's my background, football's not actually my background.
Hmm.
Like, I guarantee you, to like stand out as a wide receiver or football player, it's the boring work of like running your routes a certain way, right? Like being
Hmm.
more crisp, or like you said, knowing where the other guys, where the
Yep.
other receivers like are going to be like within their routes, and like
Yep.
there's a certain timing aspect of it as
Hmm.
well.
Yes,
And so it's
exactly.
like it's not always the sexy shit that like
Facts.
surpasses everybody, right?
Yeah.
Like, and people don't want to do it because it's not sexy, right? It's not something
Hmm.
nobody's like, you're not throwing up on the gram the boring work, right? Like
Facts.
you're just not.
Which again, we see often the evidence of those who do the boring work compared to those who want to live the sexy life. Like, keep in mind, players get about 6 weeks off between the end of mandatory minicamp and before the start of training camp. You can either choose to train every single day in those six
Yep.
weeks,
Yep.
or you can choose not to. But I can tell you, there's a conditioning test that happens that first week of training camp to where we know who went the extra mile and actually trained all break and who didn't. It's very easy to tell. Very easy.
Yeah. 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 It's literally, I mean, I think of it with the teams that I have in college too, is like coming back from like summer. Is like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, guys, the conditions test is not even hard. It's like just to make sure you got off your ass and did something.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly
Mm-hmm.
you just didn't even do anything. Like,
It's as clear as day.
what?
You got the guys who try to come back like 2 days early to try to fit 6 weeks of
Yeah.
conditioning into 2 days. Yo, what are we doing? What are we doing?
So how much too is like, since we're kind of like on the rabbit hole of decisions of like helping, because it's a little more like powerful. I won't say it's more powerful or impactful in college, but like decisions outside of
Mm,
athletics, right?
yeah.
Decisions on relationships, decisions on, actually it's probably more powerful in professional, because I always say it's literally a conversation with a group as a freshman, um just became like a highlight reel at a major university on Instagram. And all of a sudden I was
Mhm,
like, everybody came out the woodworks, didn't they? And she was
mhm.
just like, oh my God, like, how did you know? I was like, bro, just wait. Like, you're 3 meets into the season. Like, it's
Yeah,
going to get crazier and crazier from here. That's one thing. Having 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, $60 million in the bank account is a whole nother thing,
yeah,
right? And so it's like,
yeah,
how do you navigate those waters? Because it's the same concept, right?
yeah,
Like, it's like, remember the people that were there when you had nothing. Remember the people that when you were hurt and nobody wanted you, that like they were the ones in your corner, like rooting for you. Yeah, I guess, how do you manage some of those conversations?
yeah. And
And
again,
are they receptive?
it's a little different in the league because like I won't handhold anybody in the league.
Yeah,
Like it's
totally.
not my job. It's not my job to literally walk you from point A to point B. I will show you. I will show. We'll talk about where you're at, and I will show you point A, point B, point C, and point D. Here are all the options that you have in front of you. Now, how you get from point A to wherever else you want to go is going to be completely up to you. But based off my knowledge, my resources, what I have available to you at your disposal whenever you want it, based on people who have been in your shoes before,
Yeah,
choose to listen to me or not. Now more often than not, if you choose not to, at some point you'll be right back here and we'll have these exact same
yep,
conversation, hopefully with a different outcome. But I mean, to me, all those conversations are different because no two players are the same in the locker
yeah,
room. There's 90 different personalities at one time with 90 different things going on in 45 different areas of their lives. So me, where I come in is like I try to help them sort through the mess. All right. Like if you have all this stuff going on, what's at the root of this problem? Right.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
like we talked about earlier, oftentimes guys' lives are in chaos. And the only time they get peace is when they're in this building. Right. Like that's why sometimes across the league, and this is probably across many sports where guys feel most comfortable and at home in the comfort of their own locker room
Mm-hmm.
because they know who's in there, they know where their locker is, they know what to expect from everybody. But the moment they leave here, it's complete chaos. So I'm like, all right, well, you tell me this is happening. You say this happened yesterday. You said this happened last week, and now it's coming up again. What's at the root of this problem, right? Like,
Yeah,
what can we take? So spread out everything, that all the issues and complications we're having. There's got to be one thing that we can find to help alleviate some of these worries outside of the building. And again, that's really where my conversation comes in, is what can I do to help you right now? I
Yeah.
get everything else is out of whack, but what can we do right now? What is it you need? If I can't fix it, I know somebody that can. And if
Yeah.
we don't know somebody that can, we can find the resource for it. But oftentimes it's getting them to kind of take everything and kind of narrow it down to, all right, ultimately, here's what's wrong. And sometimes that takes an hour, sometimes it takes a week, sometimes, it may take all season to get one player to admit one thing to ultimately
Yeah.
help them in the future. But for me, I got to be careful in that conversation because I can't push it, right? I can't force them
Hmm.
to have the conversation because my role is based on the trust and the confidentiality that I have within the locker room. And again, when I first started this role, I remember walking into the locker room my very first day, and they was looking at me like I was the new guy, like I was the rookie, like I was
Yeah.
the guy. Like they was looking at me like I was an intern. They're like, "Yo, who is this guy?" Right? Like,
Carry my
and
pads, bro.
no one knew me. I'm sitting here like, "Yo, what's up?" Yo, they was looking at me like, "Bro, who is this guy?" Right?
Yeah.
But I had to earn my trust and I had to earn my respect in the locker room. But I also had to earn those friendships. I had to learn how to navigate friendships in the locker room. Right? Like I had to realize very quickly that if I want to gain the trust and respect and the friendship of these players, I have to be very intentional about how, when, where, and why I walked in the locker room. If every time I walked in the locker room, I had a clipboard in my hand, I'd be the clipboard guy. Like, oh, there go Alex with his clipboard. Or if every time I walked in the locker room, I had a fine letter, I'd be the fine guy. Like, oh, there go Alex, we finna fine. So now I had to start learning to navigate the locker room. All right, so
Mm,
today I'm gonna go in just to go to the bathroom, say what's up to a few folks and keep walking. Today I may go in and chop it up with our rookies. Hey, what's up, man? How are things going? All right, you good? All right, just come see me after practice. We'll talk about what happened. I may chop it up with a few veterans, crack a few jokes on some guys. So now I look like a regular in the locker room as opposed to
yeah.
some guy who always comes in with an agenda. But that was key because the more players saw me, the more comfortable they got with me. So where it took a while for players to start coming into my office just to chill and chop it up. Like that doesn't happen naturally. Like you be the
Yeah.
new face in the building, they know what this position is, yeah, and they get used to a specific person being here. So when someone new comes in, they're like, I don't know that person like that, so I'm not going to go to them. So it took time to develop those relationships in the locker room. Where now I got guys that come in just to sleep on the couch. It's fine with me. Like if you need 30 minutes in between meetings to get catch a nap, bro, catch a nap. That's cool with me. Other times I got guys who need to come in and have closed door conversations. That's fine too. But all that started for me just kind of knowing my locker room and understanding it's going to take time to get trust
Yeah.
from these guys. And when they do trust me and they do need to call me at 3 o'clock in the morning to have a conversation, or they do need to come into my office and have a closed door conversation, they trust that one, I have the knowledge. Ultimately, they're looking for a solution,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
which sometimes we get to, sometimes we don't. But it takes one, maybe sometimes multiple conversations to get to the ultimate root of the problem. And again, my job is to just be patient. They don't want to tell me what's up right then and there. That's fine. But the
Yeah.
fact is, they come in, they trust me to an extent. I don't expect them to trust me with everything off bat. No, but that's what developing relationships are for. And in my role, the most important thing you can do in this role for those that eventually want to get into player engagement, you got to be able to build and sustain relationships. A lot of that comes from
Hmm.
trust, especially trust in the locker room. Because the moment I lose trust in my locker room, I lose my job, right? But when we're talking about navigating conversations with players when it comes to decision making and navigating healthy and unhealthy relationships, I'm not going to know all their relationships by them just walking in the door and saying hi. That takes time. That takes multiple conversations. That takes a couple of texts like, "Hey, you doing good? Just checking in on you. Yo, happy birthday. Yo, congratulations on the marriage. Yo, congratulations on the new baby. How's the new dog? Are you sleeping at night?" Things like that. It takes a lot of small conversations to get to the big conversation, and that's what takes time.
Yeah. 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 I know it's the not having the ulterior motive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's I think any superstar, so to speak, is like they got their guard up, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
of like
Always.
what like what is it that you want from me? It's like my go-to question when I walk in with anybody. I'm just always like what'd you eat for dinner last night? And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
huh? I'm like, yeah, just like because it's the icebreaker and it just shows it's like it's fucking meaningless conversation, right? Like
Yeah.
who cares what you ate for dinner? It's like, I mean, I kind of do, but at the same time I don't. It's just like it just kind of like because they're always like, oh, like, are we about to have a deep conversation? It doesn't always have to be a deep conversation,
Doesn't
right? Like, we can
doesn't
shoot the shit. We don't have to
look, I
talk
walk
life
look, I walk
24/7.
past I walk past some of our top earning players all the time and don't say a word. Like
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
the question I get is, yo, how does it feel to be in a locker room with this person, this person? I'm like, Well, it's great, but once you get to know who they are as a person, all that glamour and glitz goes out the window because you also know some of the stuff they're dealing with. Like folks only see the stats on ESPN. They
Yep.
don't see what their real life is like. Like they
Yep.
don't realize that they just moved their entire family here 2 days ago and they're forced to play a game this Sunday. Like they don't see that. So when I'm looking at our top earners, I'm looking at our biggest stat winners, and I'm looking at some of our top tier names. I'm looking at them as a person, not as an athlete, because I see them as just the person 6 out of 7 days of the week. Y'all see them as an athlete on Sunday, right? But like I see them as a person, father, brother, son, nephew, uncle, whatever. I see that, you know, literally Sunday through Sunday, all the way through the next Sunday, 7 days in a row. So when I look at our locker room, like I know their sport is football, they play football, but I know who's now a husband, who's now a
Yeah.
fiance, who's now an uncle, who's now, a dad, who's now a dog owner, which is getting really big in the league. But things like that, I get to see who they are outside of just the football world, and I like that conversation, as opposed to the football conversation. And that's why, most of the time when players come in my office, I don't have ESPN on. Like I may be the most neutral space in this building because I'm not their coach. I'm not dictating their playing time. I'm not their agent. I'm not dictating their contract. Like I'm not the GM. Like I'm not the strength and conditioning coach. I'm not the nutritionist. I am the most neutral space. And when they come in here, I'm not expecting to talk football. I'm not
Yeah.
expecting them to talk football. This is the one room in the building they don't have to talk about football, And so I try to keep and maintain that level because, again, I know they probably don't want to talk football. They just got out of a position meeting. I want to talk just about the position meeting they were just in. No, they came in here to get away from that.
Yes.
Maintain that.
Yeah. 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 I spot on. I had somebody, or I had a lot of people at I was fortunate when I had the strength and conditioning gym have some professional athletes like in the off season like come train with me. And the number one question people would ask is like how do you know what to talk to them about? I'm like anything but their sport. Like just literally
Exactly.
anything but their sport. You can go any rabbit hole, their dog, their cat,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
the pool, the beach, like anything but the sport, right?
Yeah.
Like that's like just generic 101
I
rule
promise you it's
101.
101. It is 101 to a T. And they'll keep coming around for that because they know
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk to this person because we're not gonna talk about football. We're not gonna talk
Yeah.
about this, we're not gonna talk about basketball. It's universally sound.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I love it. I love it. All right, last question. If you were in a stadium with 100,000 people and you could only You're popular, so it's packed out. It's a packed house. You're in a stadium with 100,000 people and you can only leave them with one message. What would that message be?
Stadium, 100,000 people, and I can only leave them with one message.
One message.
It's a big microphone.
Yeah. It's a mic drop moment. What are you
Yeah,
going with?
yeah. I tell them don't skip leg day, and here's why. So, and I'm not talking about leg day in the
I
gym,
feel
but
like, yeah, I feel like there's a deep,
yeah,
deep
yeah.
root to this.
I'll I'll equate it to that. So, in the fitness world, leg day is seen as like the day where it's easy to skip, it's easy to bypass that day. It's not the sexy day. Like people want to flaunt the shoulders, the triceps, the abs, the biceps. No one really rocks with leg day like that because it's hard to show leg days up. But equating that to this space and athlete development and player engagement, when I say don't skip leg day, I'm talking about don't skip over the work that it takes to get here.
Hmm.
People ask me I got a LinkedIn full of people I got to get back to at some point, but messages saying, hey, I know the work that you're doing in player engagement. I want to get there one day. I'm looking for jobs, but I don't see anything. And there's reasons for that, which is another conversation. But I ultimately tell them, like, I didn't start off in player engagement. I didn't start off in athletics.
Yeah.
I started in campus activities. Like my first, 2 years post grad school, I was working in higher education. I was doing campus activities. I didn't know student athlete development existed until I got tapped on the shoulder. And then I didn't know player engagement existed until I got tapped on the other shoulder. Right. But again, when I tell folks I didn't start, like they want to know about what's it like working in the locker room, what it's like working with this player, what it's like working with this player. Like I can flex that. Like, yeah, I get to work with Coach McDaniel every single day. Like, the offense, the defense. It's cool working. It's cool
Yeah.
running out Monday Night Football with the team.
Yeah.
It's cool flying to Germany. It's cool playing the first Black Friday game. And it's nationally televised. Like that's
Yeah.
me flexing my biceps and the triceps, right? But my leg day was doing campus activities, working in the college space. That's was my foundation to getting to where I am now. Right. So I'm telling people don't skip leg day, like literally don't skip leg day in the gym because that that matters too.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it comes to professional development and getting to the space that you want to be, your leg day is going to be the work that carry you to get to where you ultimately want to be. And again, like, for me, all the way from graduate school to my 2 stops at UM, and to getting here now, like I can flex and do all I want now because I'm in this space. That's the easy part. Like, it's easy to flex where I am now. Like I love working for the league. I love working for the Dolphins. I have a top tier locker room, a top tier coaching staff, and a top tier support staff, and a top tier front office. I love it, and I can flex that. That's easy. But the hard part was getting here. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
people ask, I don't ever see player engagement jobs opening. I'm like, and you probably won't because those jobs aren't posted, right? But
Yeah.
I will tell you what you can do is you can do all the work that you can to prepare for it. And like, well, how do they do that? Go to student athlete development in the college space. I kid you not, everything I'm doing now is exactly the same as I was doing in the college space. So outside of me, there are 31 other teams that have someone in my role. Everyone's filled, so you're probably not going to see a DPE role open up anytime soon because they're all
Yeah.
filled.
Yeah.
But what you can do is go to, a D1, D2, D3 school, look at student athlete development and engagement, and start getting your work there. And here's a freebie. A lot of my closest friends who are now in the league doing player engagement, we all started off doing student athlete development in college.
Yeah.
So I could tell anybody, like, if you want to get to, this level, try looking at, doing student athlete development in the college space. Because I kid you not, now that I'm in the league, half the players I know in the league aren't on the Dolphins. Like they
Yeah.
were former UN football players who are now on other teams. And my relationship with them started when they were, freshmen and sophomores, at UM playing football. And that's why I built my foundation, but also built my foundation and common knowledge of personal leadership and career development from doing the work in the college space. I just got tapped on the shoulder to do the same thing I was doing now with the NFL. And again, it's a little easier because I'm working with a smaller locker room in one sport as opposed to 400 student athletes across 18 sports, right? But again, like, don't skip leg day, don't skip over the hard work that it takes to get to a place like this. And it's different for everybody. Some people
Yeah.
can,
Yeah.
graduate student to intern to full time role in the NFL, and that's great. Doesn't happen that way for everybody, but again, if I could just leave one thing, don't skip leg day. Don't skip it.
I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. Like I want to like respect of like the length of our conversation too, but I do want to like touch on is like because I think that's like you bring up a couple like really interesting points. One is like I think my path is similar in the sense of like I was a strength and conditioning coach. Like I wasn't mentoring athletes. I wasn't working for college universities like as
Mhm.
like an outside source of like helping build confidence and leadership and all those things. It like started in a gym and just having conversations with athletes and they were like, "Holy shit, like we're getting more out of those conversations." And so it's
We
like I
got
can
something
relate.
here.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And so it's like two things is I'm curious about. Do you think that people, one, lack the ability to just take action? And then two, do you think that they lack the ability to ask the right questions? Because I find it fascinating that people do reach out to you like, oh my God, what's it like to work like? It's like I asked you before we hit record. I was like, is there anything like you don't like, yeah, don't ask me about like specific players, coaches, things like that. And I was like, yeah, totally cool. Because in my head, I was like, I'm not going to. Like, I don't like
Mhm.
that that doesn't serve me in the conversation of like man like how'd you get here and like all
Mhm.
like I feel like stories move people and so like the more people can hear the
Mhm.
stories of like I don't feel like it benefits anybody like man it's super cool working for Coach McDaniel right it's like yeah right it's like I asked a kid one time I was like who's your favorite soccer player it's like Ronaldo it's like if you were in here training with Ronaldo right now what's one question you would ask him and he goes how many goals he wants to score this season I'm
Come
like
on, man.
bro
How does
dude
that help you?
like literally. And so it's like, I'm curious, do you think that people lack the ability to take action? And do you think that they just learning how to ask the right questions of like if they're reaching out to you, like it
Yeah.
shouldn't be what's it like being in the locker room? It should be like, I don't know, something that actually benefits them.
I think it's a sign of times and like a new generation that have grown up in this period of like instant success, right?
Yeah.
Like, you see people like it's the influencer narrative to where you can have 10 followers on Monday, but by Thursday you have 10 million because of one
Yeah.
thing you do, boom,
Yeah.
instant success.
Yeah.
And when you grow up in a generation that's the norm and you see that all the time, you think that equates to everything. Not the case. Not the case at all, And so when I have people reach out and they're like, hey, how do I get to where you want to be? I want to do player engagement. I'm like, that's great. But what have you done that kind of equates to this space already? Like,
Yeah.
have you done some leadership programs? Have you been involved in any leadership programs? Have you done any kind of career development? And oftentimes the answer is no. And I'm like, well, how do you know what it is that I do? Like, you see I work in a locker room, you see me on the field, like all that's great, but like you tell me, what do you think I do day in and day out?
Yeah.
Because I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
genuinely curious. And sometimes I have people say, well, I don't know. I'm like, well, do you not know what it is that I do, or do you not know what this role in player engagement and athlete development is? Because I can tell you, I'd probably say 2% of my job is what y'all see on TV.
Mhm.
The game day. That's probably 2%, right? Like the other 98 are the phone calls at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. That can be anything from, yo, Alex, I can't find my car keys, to, yo, Alex, like, can you meet me at this spot? We need to talk. You know what I'm saying? And just navigating players, coaches, staff, like, no one ever sees that. It's a lot of
Yep.
behind the scenes work that not very many people, if they know this, probably would not see as the glamour and glitz that matches what they see on TV. So I always genuinely ask people, like, before I tell you, how I got to my role and what it is that I do, you tell me what you think it is that I do.
Mhm.
Because that'll let me know, either have you done the research on the role, and do you have the background foundational knowledge of what athlete development, is? I mean, whether you say athlete development, student athlete development, player
Yeah.
engagement, it's all the same thing. Like, it's all the
Yeah.
same. We're here to holistically develop the players in our locker room. Baseball, soccer, women's tennis, women's track and field, men's track and field. It's all the same work. We're trying to prepare you for the next stage of your life, whether that next stage is the next game that you're first starting, or marriage, or first kid, or graduation, or you just got drafted and now you're going to, Major League Soccer, playing for the U.S. Women's National Team. All that's great. I'm just here to help you get there. And again, when folks reach out and they're like, hey, I want to do what it is that you do. Well, tell me what it is that I do. Because I don't
Yeah.
know if you know what it is that I do, or if you know to the full extent outside of you see me on TV when the camera pans to me, and that's great. But like, that might be 2% of the actual work that goes in here. Like, I have great I think the best way that I can sum up my job is I'm the first person that players meet when they come into the building, whether they're a rookie, a guy we just traded for, or a guy we picked up off the street to join practice squad, right? That's a great conversation to have. Welcome to the Dolphins. I'm gonna be your go-to person for this, and this. But I'm also the last person that players talk to when they're released from the roster, right? So I come cut day. It's a black day in the NFL. Like, I think I'll be with a group of rookies, about maybe 25 to 30 rookies, from May all the way through, yeah, pretty much the end of August, right?
Mhm.
That's a good 3, 4, 5 months, whatever. I'll be with them for that long, knowing that out of all 30 of them, 7 are going to make the roster. But I've just spent the last 4 months building relationships, building camaraderie. I know the guys' girlfriends, I know their partners, I know their dog's name, I know their mother's names. I've chopped up with their dad on the phone a few times. I've done all that work building these relationships, knowing 90% of them aren't going to make the roster,
Yep.
and hope they get success somewhere else.
Yep.
That's not a conversation everybody can have. Like, if I told you right now that you had to onboard a player on Tuesday, right? But then the following Tuesday, also know that that person's going to be cut and you're the last person they're going to talk to, what's the conversation you're going to have with that person? Most people will be like, what do I say? Exactly. Like, when people say, I want to know what it is that you do, I'm like, do you? Because again, it's not all glamour and glitz. Sometimes
Yeah. Yeah.
it sucks. But again, it goes into one, having those foundational knowledge and those relationships that I had on the college space, taking those, flipping, and being able to apply it here here with the Dolphins in the league. But again, I just think ultimately a lot of times when folks ask me, like, I want to work, I want to do the work that you're doing. How do I get there? This, and this. I'm like, well, you tell me what you think it is that I'm doing first, and I'll let you know how far you are. How close you are, how far you are, because there's some work that goes behind doing this stuff. Because it's not easy. Not like, I don't only go to work on Sundays. Like, I'm here Monday through Saturday.
Yeah. Or I even tell like so many people too is especially if they're in like if they're at a school. I'm like, I guarantee you, it's like just reach out to somebody and be like, can I literally shadow you for a day? Can I like for free? I will get you coffee, like I will buy you lunch, like I will do anything. Like, can I be at your hip pocket so that I can genuinely understand? And I think
Mm.
that's with any career. And I think a lot of people lack that ability as they just assume. It's even when I had the gym, everybody's like, man, I want to own a gym too. I'm like, do you? Like, dude, like, I
There's
don't.
work that goes into that before that, and it's just like you said. Like, again, and I get it. We're living in a time of literally instant success, where success is, it's not apparent on Monday, but it's there Thursday.
Yeah.
And now you have millions of people following you, and that's great. But it doesn't work like that in every case. And I have people that'll throw like a 4 or 5 page resume at me, and it's like, yeah, I've done this, and this. I'm like, yeah, but none of this is player development related. Like, Tell me about what you know in player development, athlete development, whatever you want to call it. Like, tell me what you know about this space. Let's have a conversation about that. I know my background. I don't want to talk about my background all the time, but tell me about you, why you're interested in this space, and what you've done up until this conversation that's led you here. Then we can have a productive conversation about, all right, here's how you can take your experiences, your knowledge, and your background and now leapfrog you into the space of athlete development. And it's absolutely fine if you start in college. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
everyone wants to go to the NFL, but like, there's nothing wrong with starting at the college level, And the question, I can literally go through my LinkedIn, go through the messages, player engagement with the NFL, player engagement with the NFL, player engagement with the NFL. I'm like, that's great. There's only 32 teams, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And I can
yeah.
tell you, I can list off the names of all 31 other people that are doing this work with me, right? But if you're that serious about athlete development, college, high school, like there are programs, there are places and spaces where you can get the exact same experience that I have now in a different space. That way, when an opening does come, you let me know you're interested. I know you're currently doing the work. I can make one phone call, be like, yo, go talk to my homeboy, go talk to my homegirl. She's currently doing the work here. And it's that easy. But if all you want to know is about my background, it doesn't help you because my background is different than yours.
Yeah, and sometimes I think it's just even. I heard somebody say this the other day. Is a big name in the like entrepreneur space, and he's like, I get DMs and messages all the time of like, hey, let me know. Like, I'll work for you for free. I'll work for you. Just tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do. And he's like, you do understand by that requires work on my end, or you just do it. Like you just like if you want
Yeah.
to make me videos, just go make me videos. Don't say, hey, what type of videos? Because that's work on my end, right? So it's like
Mhm.
shout out to all the people for like reaching out, but at some point it's like just do the thing, right? Like,
Mhm.
hey, I read
I
this
promise you
book,
will
this is
see
what I
you.
got, and like both like whatever it is, right? Like, or just make the person videos. Yeah, because you
I
don't want
promise you will find you. I will probably again the space of athlete development. It seems big because it spans high school, college, and professional. But as far as those of us that do the work, it is very small. We all know each other, so when we hear of an up and comer, like it's almost instantly. So and I want to give grace to those who aren't doing the work and are trying to get in. I would say kudos to y'all for reaching out to us and saying, "Hey, I want to get in. I just don't know how." Props, because that's probably the most productive conversation we can have. All right, so where are you at now? What are you looking to do next? Are you regionally bound at all? Because I got a position open that's right over here, but it's in Texas and you're in New York. Like, do you want to do that? Like, kudos to y'all for reaching out, saying, I love watching the work that you do, and I don't know everything, but it seems like something I'm interested in. Like, I just don't know how to get there. All right, bet. Let's talk. Let's have that conversation.
Yeah, yeah. And I can say it's as the more conversations like this I have with people in the space, and like literally before going, I'm like, Ed, you're like, yeah, I know Ed real well. I'm like, shit. All right, everybody knows Ed.
Yeah, yeah. I'm telling you, look, Ed. I'm telling you, man, Ed is the guru. That is my guy, and Ed is running a phenomenal
So have you
podcast.
ever seen Old School? Like I see him as like the Godfather. Like
Yeah,
I feel like everybody like Ed is the Godfather of player development right now.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm always happy to support any and every initiative that Ed does because again, he does it from a heart of generosity. Like he's literally doing it because of his love for the space, his love for athlete development, and his love to continue to give back to those who want to continue to join the space. And again, I continue to salute Ed. Again, just primarily because how authentic he is in his
I was
approach.
about to say genuine, dude.
Mhm.
Oh my God. I had a college coach text me after our conversation was like, that was the most powerful conversation like you've put out yet. Like just
Yeah.
from just he's just so genuine. I even told I was like, bro, you a big old teddy bear, man. Like
We have a lot of great people that work in the space, and again, we all do it from a heart of service. Like you're not in this role if you don't have a heart of service, and that's where it starts. Like heart of service, building, sustaining, maintaining relationships. Like you don't get a degree for having a heart to want to help others. You know what I'm saying? Like it's kind of a part of who you are initially, and not saying that you can't find yourself in a role where like actually no, I like doing this because a lot of us happen to fall into these spaces. Part of that's because someone else may have seen us doing the work in another space, or we may have known somebody, this or that. But it all comes down to just having a heart of service and wanting to see folks beyond, their potential, or wanting to see folks beyond when they have a ball or a bat, or a swim cap cone, or whatever their natural space is in that sport. We have the ability to see who they are beyond that and be able to be like, you know what? I see what you're doing right now. Like I see you on game day, but I'm here for everything else after game day as
Yep.
well. You know, tell folks I don't only work on Sundays, and like I love that because I probably get the most phone calls, text messages, and DMs, Sunday around 5 o'clock because the game
Yeah.
is gone.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's great. But like Monday through Saturday, it's wild around here. Like it's wild. And depending on how the outcome came out on Sunday, every day is going to be different. Every player is going to be different. Every coach is going to be different. The schedule is going to change. This and that. It's a lot that goes into the work that we do in player engagement. And I'll shout out to real quick, like my twin, Dr. Lacey Carmen Johnson for the Toronto Raptors. Like, her and I have had the exact same career trajectory. That's why I call her my twin.
Yeah.
Um, but that's somebody that I make sure that I call all the time because again, like what I'm doing with my rookies, even though it's 30 compared to her rookies, which may be a handful, we still bounce ideas off each other.
Yep.
And one of us is having a bad day, we can call on the other and be like, hey, this is what just happened, like, and just be able to vent. And I encourage everybody to have someone that you can trust and confide in, especially in this role of athlete development, that's someone who just understands the space and understands what you're doing. But me and my twin, we go back and forth all the time. Like, yo, this just happened. You wouldn't believe what just happened. Like those kinds of conversations.
Yeah, and I think too is like do wrap things up is I think like you said is it is literally and the story I always like kind of I knew early on like this was going to be the route because it is about others winning. It's like I always tell them I'm like if you win a national title is my name going to be in the paper? No. If you lose for the national title is my name going to be in the paper? No. So like I have no ulterior motive. I'm literally here to just try to help you and I'll
Mm-hmm.
never forget one of the literally is probably one of the first athletes. This is like 12 years ago, specifically like in the wrestling space. Um, and he accomplished a couple things. He accomplished a couple of major accomplishments, and he came back to me, and he kind of like had like a sad, confused almost look on his face. I was like, dude, like what's going on? He was just like, he's like, it's not fair. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he goes, you're so much of a better athlete and wrestler than me and like I accomplished more than you and I was like that's the point man like
Mm-hmm.
that's the point is like I know what it's like to be on the other end and like my whole goal is to like I never want you to feel that pain so I will
Yeah.
give you every resource every ounce of energy every piece of advice I'll plant every seed that I can so that
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to experience that pain now are you going to have some pain sure like that's the way kind of the cookie crumbles so to speak but like that's when I knew of just like yeah like this is like that's the
Yeah.
path, right? Like
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
about like and whatever winning means, it can be from sports or life or just relationships of like helping people navigate of like
Mm-hmm.
because most people don't know. And it's encouraging, like as silly as it is with a lot of those college athletes, is like some of these kids have like never been on a date. I'm like, but like I would encourage it. It's like you can start to figure out what you like and what you don't like, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe like somebody talks like, maybe don't. Like I don't who
Yeah.
knows, right? Like, but you don't know until you shoot the shot, no pun intended,
Exactly.
right? Like getting out there and just kind of seeing. So
It's
yeah.
all life skills, at the end of the day. And, when we bring in our rookies this summer, it's going to be the first time a lot of them have ever been on their own. And to kind of go back real quick, people always the biggest difference between, college and the pros. I think more so with the rookies, it's, in college, everything is wrapped up for you. Like you have someone taking you to class, you got someone literally plotting out your day for you. In the pros, we give you a schedule, right? Like here's the time of everything. Ain't nobody finna come and get you though. Ain't nobody finna call you. Like you are on your own. Now I'm here to help advise you through it, but no one up here is going to handhold you. And I say that because it's often even I forget just how much is done at the college space for players, no matter what sports,
Yep.
where when they get to the pros and someone shows up 15 minutes late for a team meeting, they'll call me afterwards, like, well, no one called me to let me know the team meeting was at 10 o'clock. We're not supposed to. We gave you the
Yeah.
schedule for the week. Like, and to them,
Yeah.
it's just like, wait, you're kidding. I'm like, no, this is real life. So a lot of the work that I do is life skills. It's
Yeah.
life skills.
Do you know John Battle? Like student athlete development. He's at Houston now.
Yeah, at Houston now. I think he did some time at University of Miami also. Yeah, yeah. He's another
Okay.
person I got to follow up with. John, I got you, bro. I got
Yeah.
you. I'll follow up with you.
So I just had him on like and talking to, and so one of the things where I wanted to say is you talk about like figuring things out on your own is I know he bounced around the league a little bit, and he was with the Steelers for a minute, and he was like, Coach Tomlin's thing was he's like, the standard is the standard. He was like, but
Mhm.
he's like, but the thing was he never told you what the standard was. It was just a saying, right? Like the standard, but you
Exactly.
had to go figure out like what the
Exactly.
standard was and then go live
Exactly.
it. It wasn't like,
Mhm.
all right, everybody sit down, here's the standard, and here's what I expect of you and how to live, so to speak.
Mhm.
And so I was like, yeah, like that's because we were talking about curiosity. So that makes me
Yeah.
think of like it's not going to be spoon fed to you
It's
of
not.
like, well, like, hey, you didn't live the standard. Well, you never told me what the standard was. Well, you should have figured it out because now you're going home.
Because literally, but then, and again, the standard could be any. I think the at the base or root, the standard is your routine. What gets you up every day? What gets you through the day, and what gets you to the next day? Again, the standard is waking up at 6 o'clock every morning, getting here by 7, so you can rehab between 7 and 7:30, eat breakfast at 8, have team meeting from 8 to 8:30, jump right into position meeting, be able to be fully attentive and fully focused to take down the notes that you need from 9 to 11, and be able to go out and have a productive practice from 11 to 1. Come back and watch that practice and still be fully attentive till 3, have another workout from 3 to 4:45, have a good meal before you go home, and really just relax. Like that's the standard of setting yourself up to succeed every single day. I'm not going to tell you how to do that, but
Yeah.
that's the standard here is making sure
Yeah.
that you're 1% better tomorrow than you were today.
Yeah.
That's the standard. But again, we're not going to tell you how to get there. Again, I will show you how everyone who has come before you has done it. These are the players that did it right. These are the players that are still working on it. There is a wide range, but I can tell you there are footsteps. Again, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I can show you what others have done and what's helped them along the way. Hopefully, you can adapt it and put your own spin on it. But you will not last long in this league if you don't have a standard of expectations for yourself to get you from Sunday to the following Sunday. And the NFL has the ability to weed out folks very quickly, very quickly.
Very fast. Like you said, be somewhere Monday and be jobless Wednesday. Whew.
and that's how it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, awesome, man. I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun, man. Like I
Yeah.
really I love, like I said before, is I don't know. I think like stories are like what move people. And it's like
Mhm.
as I like help people understand concepts, and everybody gets tired of like me talking in my stories and my analogies. So it's kind of like the big purpose of the podcast too, is like other stories, other people's
Mhm.
analogies to where it's like they can pick up those gems, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it just helps them kind of
It's the
plant the
same. It's the
seed.
same work. Again, I can talk to my locker room, Sunday through Thursday about one topic. I can bring in somebody else Friday and have the exact same topic. They're like, "Oh, okay, great." I'm like,
He's a genius.
I just said this for 3 straight days. We're living the same life. We're living the same life.
I love it. I love it. Well, man, I appreciate it. Until next time, everybody.
Yeah,
Peace.
appreciate you, man.